Today, after the arrival of Amit Shah was sent definitely for that particular reason, and to see that BJP would get not less than 55 seats, knowing very well that this is a heartland. Whoever captures the UP definitely will become the power center, that they would become the prime minister. In fact, the whole argument was that if BJP gets, if Modi contests from the UP, one of the constituencies, they will definitely capture not less than 170 seats, particularly of the North India. So they concentrated on 170 seats. That's the reason why Narendra Modi also brought into Varanasi, and Amit Shah was brought into Uttar Pradesh, and he was very ruthless in distributing the tickets.
Yes.
Yeah, he was very, very ruthless in distributing the tickets, and that's the reason why he gave the tickets to those who could deliver the goods to the BJP. And that's the reason why UP became the major center for the political discourses.
Right, quickly, of course, we're looking at Chikbalapur there. It was expected to be a very tight battle, but as of now, it's Bachegowda who's taken an early lead. Veerappa Moily and Kumaraswamy are trailing. Of course, it's too early to talk about exactly what are the trends, but of course, this is an early lead for Bachegowda. This is, as you mentioned, all about postal ballots allowed. So, of course, Chikbalapur will be a very interesting constituency. It is a very important one for every single political party, be it the JDS, the Congress, or even the BJP. And as of now, it's not Veerappa Moily or Kumaraswamy, but Bachegowda, simply based on those postal ballots.
Now, coming back to you, sir, can you tell us about why did the Congress shy away from hitting a relationship with the BSP?
One important thing is that they are all unpredictable allies. Particularly the BSP or anybody for that matter, except Lallu. They had the confidence despite the fact that Lallu was behind bars, and despite the fact that Rahul, came in the way of Lallu becoming unquestionable leader of the Bihar and the leader of the Yadavas, Lallu remains with the Congress. He remained a loyal ally of Congress. But in the case of the BSP, there is an unpredictable.
Is it because somewhere in the 90s they had actually allied with one of the parties, if I'm right, with the BSP during Narasimha Rao's time, and they had lost, they have never gained those seats back? It's because of that.
Both for SP or for BSP, there's no gain by allying with Congress. It's going to strengthen Congress. So why would they want to, empower an ally, a competitor, by turning them into an ally? If Congress was going to add something to the mix, then SP or BSP would have joined hands. So that's, it's as simple as that. Whereas in Bihar, the alliance between Lallu Yadav and Congress actually strengthens the Muslim Yadav combination, which it doesn't in UP. Because Congress...
There's a possibility that the Muslim vote will not go to Congress, but rather to the BSP.
So
we are all suspecting that.
No, that could be, but I do not agree with the professor when he said Amit Shah was sent there to do a communal divide. Definitely not. He was sent there to see that the right person gets into the right constituency seat. That you have done, right candidate you have chosen, and organization skill which he has got. That's the reason he has been sent, not to do a communal divide as Mr. Professor said.
Mr. Murthy, was he sent for organization skills only?
Please.
Amit Shah is a known criminal.
Come on. Let's not talk those lines at all. He has been exonerated from all their complaints and have been filed against him by the government.
All right.
He
has been exonerated, all right.
Yeah.
We know once he is sent, what kind of methods he uses and what are the outcome he is expecting.
This is frustration talk.
No, but that's
court has exonerated. It's not proper to talk like that.
Exactly, I agree with you. It's below belt. Below belt talk.
Okay. Calm. Don't be.
I'm very calm.
Also,
I'm very calm, Mr. Murthy.
Yeah, I wish
only the object to such kind of statement of yours.
Let's come to the point. Amit Shah's
read there.
Amit Shah's brief was something different. The way in which the Lucknow seat was usurped by Rajnath, the way in which the traditional Murali Manohar Joshi seat was sent to Kanpur, whatever social engineering he has done is only to see that those people who are strong contenders in case the NDA comes are kept a little away from the seat. That's all the brief was given to Amit Shah. Whether he has succeeded or not, we will know in a couple of hours' time. But the negation of the role of BJP, the BSP and the SP cannot be set aside. It cannot be ignored. And we also should know that Jats have been given a prominent position. The Jats have been given reservation, and Ajit Singh is not dead yet. He is still active. Therefore, the social segments that whichever was a constituents of the Congress party might have been distributed in all these things. But they will definitely come back as a solid block to support Congress party in case a UPA 3 has to be formed. So this cannot, and mark my words, the Bharatiya Janata Party shall not cross more than 30 in UP.
On that note, we'll slip into a short break, and we'll also know soon, of course, if Mr. Murthy's prediction. But two more guests joining us in our studios. First of all, we have Ms. Shashwati Chakraborty. Thank you so much. A very well-known political analyst and a former journalist, of course. And besides that, we have Mr. Sampath Raman, the President-elect of FKCCI. Thank you so much for joining us in our studios, Mr. Sampath. You've been listening to the conversation that's been happening out here. Quite a bit of heat also being exchanged out there. But speaking about Uttar Pradesh, it's all in the love of politics, don't worry. But Mr. Raman, speaking about Uttar Pradesh, everyone's been talking about how important it is about the BJP's campaign, about Congress's, and Mr. Murthy even went on to state that 30 would be pretty much it for the BJP. Do you think 54 is far-fetched, or do you think that's pretty much where they could stand?
I would say that Narendra Modi has done a great job in electioneering, and it's going to have its positive impact in UP, and I'm sure they will have more than 50.
Right. So how the business houses and the markets looking at this?
For business, Namo is going to be really good.
In what way, if you can just stress a little bit on that?
See, there's great development in India as such. Though it started with Manmohan Singh and the Congress regime, it has become a spent force. Nothing is happening now. For the last 3 years, industry is in lull. Namo is promising that he will revive the industry. He will bring e-governance. There will be less governance and better governance. And we believe that he will do it.
Right. Coming to you, Ms. Shashwati, quite simply, when you talk about Uttar Pradesh, was it an important move by Amit Shah, the fact that they did not field any Muslim candidates on their part? Do you think that will help them or will actually affect them?
You know, I've been listening to some of the discussion that was going on earlier. Vis-a-vis UP, I just have a couple of simple points to make. It was identified pretty early on that UP would be the battleground. I think, you know, the BJP identified that pretty much early on in the electioneering process. If you notice, it was very critical for Narendra Modi and, you know, the RSS, which is backing Narendra Modi, to keep UP completely within their control in terms of strategy. Which is why you had a Murli Manohar Joshi removed from the picture, you had a Lalji Tandon removed from the picture, you had Rajnath Singh going into UP, because this is literally the troika of Rajnath Singh, Narendra Modi and Amit Shah, who was going to keep a complete tight leash over what was happening in UP. You did not have another BJP leader, and this is remarkable. An entire election process has been fought without another senior leader of the BJP coming out and campaigning for Modi. You know, it was Narendra Modi campaigning for everybody. Who was campaigning for him? Nobody from the BJP was campaigning for him. I mean, towards the fag end, you saw Arun Jaitley land up in Varanasi. You know, and he made the right noises. But other than that, other than Rajnath Singh, Narendra Modi and Amit Shah, nobody really led the campaign this time. And therefore, they had to keep a critical control over UP, both in terms of strategy from choice of candidates. And, you know, midway you saw a shift in strategy. The development language changed. Identity politics came back onto center stage. Now, whether Amit Shah polarizes people or not is not the point. Point is, on the ground, did you finally try to get your numbers by polarizing people? And if that was your strategy, then keeping the Muslims on their toes was a very large part of that act. Because, you know, they figured out pretty early on that if the Muslim vote could potentially be split between the Congress and the Samajwadi Party, then you are looking at a winning situation. And I think that was a very simple strategy that they played too. And whether it bears them results or not, we'll get to know.
There's also a lot of talk about the OBCs here. Everyone's saying that the OBC may have shifted now to the BJP.
Well, from the little that we understand of the ground situation in UP, this was a vote bank that Mayawati has used time and again, and there has been a split. You see, so if the Muslim votes have split between the so-called secular parties of Samajwadi Party and the Congress, and if the OBC vote has split between the BSP and the BJP, then obviously BJP has an edge over the others in sheer number terms. Now, how many seats will that convert into, that strategy convert into, we'll get to know in a couple of hours. But it is very clear that Amit Shah's role in UP has been very critical from beginning to end, because Narendra Modi wouldn't let that out of his leash.
So it was a gamble they were ready to take.
They had to take. Whether they were ready or not, of course they were ready. They had to take. What was the choice they had? For every Gujarat, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, you have a Tamil Nadu, a West Bengal and Odisha, which are not going to give you seats. Right? So for every state that was giving you seats, you had a state that was not giving you seats. And then you had states like Maharashtra, where you're completely dependent on your allies. You know, if the Shiv Sena wins, the BJP goes through there in Maharashtra. So UP and Bihar, because from the time that the JDU decided to move away, and it was very clear that Nitish Kumar and Narendra Modi cannot possibly sit on the same platform, they decided that, okay, so Bihar is a ground that we can cultivate. And Uttar Pradesh, what was the choice they were left with? And therefore, they put their full energies on Uttar Pradesh, and that might just pay off.
Right. Also talking about the states where BJP doesn't have so much of an impact, the likes of West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and several others. Do you think, Mr. Tyagaraj, do you think that if they even manage to secure something like 3 to 4 seats in, say, even Tamil Nadu, do you think that will make a difference, that at the end of the day it's progress for the party?
Definitely, but don't forget one thing. In Tamil Nadu, for example, the reason why they tied up an alliance was that independently they were zero there. Right, so that an alliance, Rainbow Alliance, whatever you call them, was essential for them. So it's inevitable. If at all they do well, that will be on the basis that they'll be riding on the back of the allies. If they do well, that would help them. But just a point about what she mentioned about UP. UP, with a huge number of seats that it throws up, it inevitably becomes important for all the parties. Besides, it's a reflection of what happens in the Hindi belt, right? So you down UP, Bihar, even Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, etc., are inevitably important for any party if it has to rule at the center. So their calculations will willy-nilly border around how to maximize the gains in those systems.
No, Mr. Sharma, talking about Tamil Nadu.
Just one small point here, adding to what Tyagaraj has been just mentioned. I think, what's happening in UP also going forward reflects, will at least be seen several years ahead as the fight between feudal politics, and growth politics. I think there is a huge difference, because parties like the Samajwadi Party will have to wake up and realize that we don't any longer have these zamindaris that we did. And that votes actually make a difference. Because for a long time, it was considered between, just like AIADMK, DMK in Tamil Nadu, it's either or. And you're just assuming that it's either them or us. Other than them and us, there's nothing else. And UP was also a situation like that. Ever since Mayawati rose, it was either BSP or SP. Congress lost that state a long time ago. So now you're actually waking up to the fact that there are a whole bunch of other dimensions that are coming into politics other than fiefdoms.
Right.